everybody, welcome back to Hayes Review. Today I'm joined here by
Jake.
And we will be reviewing Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise was directed by Lee Cronin and was produced by Robert Tapert. So it's not Sam Raimi.
No.
So very different vibes. So I personally have only seen the first Evil Dead movie, and I've seen some clips from the second and third one, so I don't really know that much about it. That's why I have my brother here, because he's seen all of them.
Yeah.
And he knows a lot more about them than I do. So, okay, so for cast, let's see. So for the mom, whose name is Ellie in the movie, she's played by Alyssa Sutherland, and I think she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she was great.
She was amazing. And then there's Beth, who's Ellie's sister, and she's played by Lily Sullivan. And we have Danny, who is the son of Ellie. So Ellie has 3 kids. It's Danny, Cassie, and Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then there's Danny, who is played by Morgan Davies. There is Cassie, who was played by Nell Fisher. And there is Bridget, played by Gabrielle Echolas.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Evil Dead Rise compare to the old Evil Dead movies?
Well, it's definitely a horror movie.
Yes.
Foremost.
Yeah.
It's not much comedy or campiness like the
No,
other Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, no, it's straight just
Terror.
horror, terror, gruesome, gory.
A lot of blood.
A lot of blood. Yes.
Well, the other Evil Deads have blood,
but this is like an insane amount.
Mm-hmm. Like the very first scene of the movie when they're in the cabin by the lake, she gets her her scalp ripped off.
So yeah, the beginning of this movie was really, really cool because it was like the intro, or like,
It's like the day earlier,
yeah, so
day later.
There's a scene, it's maybe like 5 minutes or something, and it's a day before the main story. Or no, a day after the main story. Yeah. Apparently one of the girls isn't feeling so good, so then the other girl goes and checks on her, and she's just saying all this weird stuff.
She's reading her book.
All of a sudden, her friend shoots up in the bed and is still staring at the wall, but now she's sat up. But obviously, she can't see the book because her back is turned to her. Mm-hmm. And the friend even closes the book, and she is still reading. Keeps going. Yeah. She's still reading out of the book. And then she falls off of the bed, and she starts vomiting, I guess you could say. The girl all of a sudden wakes up, and her eyes are yellow, and she's...
She grabs her
by the neck.
Yeah.
And
rips her scalp off.
Yeah. Rips her scalp off. And then the girl who gets her scalp ripped off is running onto the dock of the cabin. Mm-hmm. And the boyfriend's out there like playing with a drone. And so then the girl runs over there and is like, help me. And the boyfriend's like, what the hell?
What's going on?
Yeah. And then the girl, who obviously is a deadite, as they call them, who's been infected with the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
She is walking along the dock, like, after them, and
just
falls into the lake.
And then her boyfriend jumps in to save her.
Yeah. Which then doesn't know what's going on, so he's like,
and then, gosh, like, then the water starts filling with blood, like out of Jaws.
Yeah.
You see all blood in the water.
The girl who is infected...
she like floats,
all of a sudden pops out of the water and is floating. Behind her is the intro.
Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise, right behind her. And I really love that intro.
Yeah, that was really cool.
It was like, it almost gave me goosebumps. I was like,
the music was really good there too.
The music was super, super good. It was like, that intro from Insidious where it's like the really
super loud
music. It was kind of like that vibe. But anyway, yeah, we really, really like the intro.
And then it says a day earlier, right after that.
Yeah, and then it goes a day earlier. And then we are introduced to Beth, who is Ellie's sister. The sister arrives there. She tells her sister, like, Beth tells Ellie, like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. So then she sends her kids out to go get pizza.
Yeah.
And while they're out, she's saying that something's wrong, like, I messed up again, blah, blah, blah. And so her sister's like, what? I mean, I can help you. Like, what is it? But as soon as she's about to tell her, there's an earthquake that hits. And the kids are just arriving back from getting pizza.
In the parking garage.
And all of a sudden, a hole opens up in the bottom of the parking garage.
Yeah, and the brother's like, guys, look, there's a hole in the ground.
Yeah,
and
he's like, let's go check it out.
Like, no,
bruh,
idiot.
Like, are you serious? And like, whatever. So then he goes to check it out, and
it's a bank vault. It turns out because
the
old building was a bank vault. Now it's an apartment building.
So he sees this sort of sarcophagus.
Something like that, but made out of stone.
It's made out of stone, and there's a hole in the bottom of it. So he's just like, oh, let me reach my hand in there and see what I find.
And it's this thing.
What kid would do that? What kid would see something that could hold a dead body and
dumbass
be like,
it's a dumbass white kid.
Yeah.
He's just being stupid.
Yeah. So then he pulls out what does he pull out first? The record?
He finds. Yeah, he's going through records first that he finds in like these cabinets that are all covered in dust.
Yeah.
And he's a DJ, which we find out earlier in the movie. Mm-hmm. So he takes the records and then he goes over to the tomb and pulls out something covered in like wrapping paper. Yeah. And he opens it and there's like all these bugs come out flying, like roaches.
That would be his first indication, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't take this back home with me. He pulls out the Book of the Dead or the
Necronomicon.
Yeah, so he pulls out some records and he stuffs them all into his backpack and then he gets up out of the hole. So they're trying to open the book and it won't open.
Oh yeah, there's like
he gets his finger pricked.
There's teeth on the side holding it closed.
Yeah, so he gets his finger pricked, and the blood opens the book.
Yeah, it drips and soaks into the book. There's drawings of people getting mutilated.
Yes.
In
like
a bunch
really
of different ways.
Stuff, definitely. So then the brother then plays these records that are from an old. It's from what?
The 20s.
The 20s.
Yeah.
So apparently this has been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and it's an older record, so he doesn't have the right RPMs. He doesn't
have the right spinster thing.
So he has to spin it faster because it's 78.
Yeah. So he starts playing one of them, even though his sister warned him not to mess with it. Whatever.
And then it's a guy talking about the book to like a congregation.
Yeah.
And they're they're freaking out about it. Like, this is devil worship.
Yeah. We shouldn't be playing this. This isn't right. So he's just playing it, spinning it around. And then
he puts on the second one.
One ends, and then he puts on the second one, and the priest is reading aloud from the book.
Yeah, and translating it.
All of a sudden, the book that he has pops open and is flipping through the pages, and
he tries
obviously some incantation in Latin.
Yeah, he's like cantu something, and he's trying to stop the record because he noticed.
Yeah, he's trying to lift up the needle, trying to stop the record.
It's like zapping him.
Yeah, and it's electrocuting him. So it reads the
incantation
aloud, and hell is released into the world again. So then their mom is carrying a bunch of stuff down to the car because they're like or the storage unit. I'm not really sure where she was going with the stuff. But she goes down the elevator, kind of deering this kid while he was playing it, right? She was going down.
Yeah, because she gets to the bottom of the elevator, and then the camera threw straight into the building, to the elevator, where the mom's coming down to the bottom floor, and then it hits her against the
So yeah, as soon as the elevator opens, it's like the gust of wind that comes with
and possesses her.
And she's in there, and there's something breathing in there with her, like some sort of presence, and she's like, shut up, and like it doesn't like that.
Oh yeah, and it wraps around her neck and tries to choke her at first.
Yeah.
And then she's trying to get her legs up against like the wall to stop her from choking.
Yeah.
And then it grabs her legs and her arms and then like mangles her.
Basically like
mangles her and then breaks her arm, and then she's like limp after that.
And then it's assumed that she is now possessed by the
Evil Dead.
But one of the kids looks out into the neighborhood, and they're like, yeah, we're the only ones without power. So then the mommy comes back, and and it's really dark, obviously, because the power's out, so they don't really know what's wrong with her yet. So she walks into the kitchen, starts making some breakfast.
She starts throwing eggs into the pan and cooking it. And she's like talking just gibberish.
Yeah, she doesn't really make sense. She's speaking like broken English.
Yeah.
And she is like saying how she wishes she could climb inside their bodies so they could be together forever. Mm-hmm. And then her sister Beth is just like, Ellie, are you okay? Yeah. Like, what's going on?
She just starts puking like white liquid all over the floor.
Yeah.
It's just don't let it take my kids.
Yeah.
Or my babies.
Yeah. She's saying that to her sister. and then she passes out. Or they think that she's dead because she has no pulse.
They put her on her bed after that.
Yeah, they put her in her bed
and invite the neighbors in.
A younger man, an older man, and then 2 little boys that are on the same floor as them.
Yeah,
and they're friendly. So the older man and the younger man, they come into the apartment, and the younger man
says a prayer.
Yeah, says a prayer, and is just like, hoping for the best or whatever. And there's a part where he's trying to close her eyes because she's dead.
And then she opens them right after that.
And she keeps opening them, and it's really funny.
Yeah. That's like one of the only moments.
That's like one of the only funny
comedy.
Moments in it. Yeah.
She wakes up out of the bed.
Yeah, she wakes up out of the bed, and they see that she's burning up, so they go take her into the bathtub, which has cold water in it because they think that she has a fever. And she starts squirming and screaming in the bathtub, and she then shoots up to the ceiling and grabs onto the ceiling with her hands and legs. But it's like flipped. Like the Exorcist type. Like the Exorcist type stuff, yeah. And she starts screaming super loud, shaking the whole apartment, and then passes out and falls in the tub. Yeah. And then she grabs, starts grabbing the edge, like on the edge of the tub. And then gets her head up and is like, hi. It looks really creepy. Yeah, really creepy. Yellow eyes. This actress did so good. She was so scary. So then they're all really scared, and they run out of the bathroom, and then there are shards of glass on the ground because of the previous earthquake. Because she screamed, maybe. Oh, because she screamed. And broke some glass. There's a bunch of broken glass on the ground because of her screaming and breaking glass. Like, her scream was so high-pitched that it broke glass. So then she picks up one of the pieces of glass and is walking towards her sister, and her sister is trying to defend herself. And so she puts her hands up like this, and the sister, Ellie, stabs her straight through the hand. Yes, stabs her straight through the hand with a shard of glass. And her oldest daughter is like, Mom, what are you doing? I don't understand what's going on. Like, something's wrong with you. Blah, blah, blah. And so the mom jumps on her and grabs her tattoo gun and cuts her cheek open with the tattoo gun. And then the son comes over and breaks a chair over her. Yeah. But she drips some like black goo in her. Yeah, but before that, the mom is like, oh, let me kiss it better. And then gets her tongue out, and it's like dripping this liquid. They're on the top floor, and the elevator doesn't work because the power's out, and then the stairs are demolished. So there's really no way out. They're stuck up there, and the phone lines are down. There's no connection, no service. The younger man goes in there with the older guy, and he walks in there, and he's like, Ellie, are you okay? What's going on? And then she sees him and immediately runs over to him and jumps on him, and then is like, ooh, that's a yummy eyeball. Let me bite it out of your skull. Yeah. So then that's what she does. And then she spits it into the kids' mouth. So there's the 2 younger kids, they're also there witnessing all this. And the older of the 2 his mouth is wide open because obviously she just bit his eyeball out of his skull, and so he's shocked. He's shocked. And she spits it out, and the eyeball flies into his mouth, and he chokes on it. So then the young man is dead, and then that kid is dead. And the old neighbor comes out with his shotgun and shoots Ellie, and makes a huge hole in her stomach. And then he tries to shoot her again, but she smacks his gun up and then kills him as well. So also, while this is all happening, we're all watching from the peephole, which is like a fisheye view of the hallway. Yeah. So we don't really see all that's happening. Then the old man dies, and then there's one kid left, and we see him running across the hallway trying to get to his apartment, I'm assuming, to get back in his house. Yeah, to get away from... And we see him fly against the wall, and both of his arms are now missing. So she's killed everyone in that hallway. It's covered in blood. Covered in blood. So Bridget is in the kitchen, and she all of a sudden is leaking this black liquid out of all of her orifices, like out of her nose, out of her eyes, out of her mouth, out of her ears. She puked up bugs or worms. Some sort of insects are falling out of her mouth in this black liquid. And so it's assumed that she is also now infected with the evil dead. So yeah, then Beth checks on Bridget in the kitchen.
Eating a wine glass.
On the counter in the corner, like
Hunched over.
And there's some sort of like crunching noise. And so she turns around to her aunt. She starts crawling towards Beth and gets a cheese grater.
Oh yeah, Beth's trying to crawl away, and then she gets her leg scratched by a cheese grater.
Yeah, like she gets her skin grated like cheese, basically.
Yeah, she's screaming.
And then she ends up knocking Bridget out with a frying pan.
Yeah.
Then Bridget enters the room with Danny and Cassie, and then starts lunging towards Cassie, and Cassie has this little wooden stick that she has made, her weapon, I would say. And so Bridget is lunging towards her, and Cassie points it up and ends up stabbing her sister through the head, like into the brain. She collapses on the ground, and then Danny ties her up and like puts a sheet over her, and then puts her in one of their beds.
Mm-hmm. So, and he's like, I don't want her going anywhere.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want her going anywhere. And while this is all happening, Ellie is scratching at the door, pounding her head on the door. It's kind of like that scene from Hereditary where the mom is pounding her head on the attic door, trying to get to her son.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where she's doing everything she can to get into the house.
Trying to sing a song to Cassie.
Oh, yeah. So
to convince her to unlock the door, which she eventually does, which is stupid.
Yeah.
She knows it's not her mom. She should know. It's a deadite.
Yes.
It's like covered in blood, and there's dead bodies in the hallway.
Yeah.
She still opens the door.
She's like 6 or 7 or whatever, doesn't really know what's going on. She's confused. She still thinks her mom is in there somewhere, so the deadite convinces her to open the door, and then she unlocks choking her.
She unlocks the door for a second, and then she's immediately getting choked.
Yeah. So then Beth rushes over there, and
they just knock her hand out of the way and slam the door.
Locks the door again. Beth asks Danny, she's like, what, like, let me listen to whatever you played. Maybe there's something in there that can tell us how to get out of this situation. She tells them to stay in their room, and then she hands Danny a knife just in case. And then, so Beth goes into Danny's room, puts on some headphones, and listens to the record.
Yeah, and there's a cat that was in the vents throughout the whole movie, so they've
in the hallway
alluded to that. So then the mom is in the vents, and they think then it's like that's not a cat.
Yeah.
In the vents, and then it goes all the way to Danny's room, and then
that's where Beth is.
Yeah, and then Ellie drops down.
Yeah,
and
so she's like crawling on the wall like a spider.
Yeah.
In the background while she is listening to this record, trying to figure out what's. Oh, also. The priest is saying, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, you're hopeless.
There's no reversing.
Just
once they're...
dismember them, and then that's all you can do. There's nothing more than that.
So he's saying, like, there's no going back. There's no hope. You just have to kill all of them, basically. Like, once you're infected, you can't be uninfected. And yeah, you have to dismember all of them. So...
Because in the originals, it was just to dawn. Whenever the sun came out, all the dead would die.
Yeah.
The deadites.
Ellie is climbing into Danny's room where Beth is while she's listening to the record. Bridget is now up and walking towards Cassie and Danny. And so she's kind of floating almost. Like it's just the sheet. Then Danny stabs his sister with a knife.
And leaves it in her.
And leaves it in her, which we were all like, come on, bro, just pull it out. Like, she's going to use it against you. Like, any of the deadites that get a weapon in them, they automatically use it against the person. So it's like...
It's pretty stupid.
Yeah. So then Cassie jumps under the couch and is super scared. And then Danny is in the kitchen with Bridget.
She pulls a knife out of her chest and then stabs him.
Stabs him in his arm.
Yeah, in his bicep.
Yeah. And then starts throwing up all over him.
Yeah, he's covered in
his mouth.
It's like blood.
Blood, some sort of blood, liquid, whatever.
And then she stabs him right in his chest, and then.
The flame is on. So they have a gas stove, and the flame is still on from the stove.
Yeah.
And he uses some sort of
spray.
aerosol spray and sprays it into the flame, and then it gets all over Bridget. She's engulfed in flames. And then the mom is again attacking her sister and saying, like, I'll eat your soul. And then she goes down and listens to her belly and is like, oh, 2 souls. So Cassie is under the couch, and there's a pair of scissors there. And so she slides them to her aunt, and then Beth picks them up and stabs her sister in the face with them.
Yep.
And
then they run out to the hallway trying to open the fire escape again, which doesn't work. And then they go into the elevator. But she grabs the old man's shotgun, which he's gripping on it really hard, and takes that and some shells that he had on the floor, and then they go to the elevator.
Whenever Ellie is coming after them, they're in the elevator. Or no, they're in the hallway trying to get to the elevator, and Ellie comes out and is trying to attack them once again, and her sister ends up shooting her arm off and shooting one of her legs off. And so she can't really move anymore, you know.
Yeah, she collapses.
And then she collapses on the ground, and then her 2 kids come out, and they sound like they're crying.
And they start laughing.
But then they start laughing. Cassie picks up some keys that were blocking the doors from closing, so the doors close. Power magically comes back on in the elevator. But then the buttons...
Yeah, start filling with blood.
There's a page in the book where it shows this monster that looks like it's made out of multiple people.
Yeah, a bunch of arms.
Yeah, so her 2 kids are jamming their arms into their mom. See a blood trail that leads up to the vent in the hallway.
And then Beth is trying to open the vent on the top of the elevator to escape. And then the creature's right there, and all the arms start pushing their way through to grab her.
Mm-hmm. But then there's a sign in the elevator that says...
max
weight limit
900 pounds
900
6
pounds.
people.
Yeah.
And then the blood keeps filling and filling, so you can guess what's going to happen. The elevator drops
down to the very bottom, the basement.
And
I guess the parking garage.
And the camera is right outside, and then you hear a ding, and then it opens and blood starts flowing out.
Yeah, kind of like The Shining. Right?
Yeah, like exactly like The Shining.
Yeah. So then, but the creature is not in the elevator whenever they crash down. It's just Beth and Cassie. So then they, gather the strength to go find the car, and then they get in the car, and it's assumed that the monster is after them because they hear a bunch of noises.
Can't drive
some
away.
of the ground is elevated a little bit, so she can't get her wheels over it. And then Cassie sees out of the rear view mirror, she sees that the creature is now coming. Door to the parking garage that opens in and out, and it's now it's open, but the door is now closing.
Yeah.
And it's
like an Indiana Jones moment. Then Cassie's like halfway, and she gets grabbed by the creature.
They pull her into the truck, and they're going to try to cut her head off with a chainsaw or something. They're going to try to do something to her with a chainsaw. And so there's a tiny little, part of the fence that she can break through.
Yeah, she kicks down
some of the fence. Yeah, she kicks down a part of the fence, and she still has the shotgun. So then she runs all the way over to where they are and shoots the monster with the shotgun.
They turn on the wood chipper, and then they grab her and try to pull her into it. And then Cassie's right there, and it turns it off, so then she gets out of it. And then the creature's right in front of the wood chipper, and then Beth has a shotgun now and the chainsaw. She has a chainsaw.
She has a chainsaw, yeah.
And then she's revving it up and then stabs the creature with it.
Yeah, and tries Cassie to turn the machine back on.
And she pushes the creature into it.
Yeah.
Which eventually gets sucked into it.
And then,
the girl from the beginning of the movie is coming downstairs and,
yes.
Is she on the elevator?
No. She's just in the parking lot.
Yeah, she tries to get the elevator, but it won't work, and then she goes down the stairs.
Yeah, she's obviously on a different floor of the apartment.
Yeah, and earlier she's FaceTiming the girl at the very beginning.
Who gets scalped.
Yeah. And then she was being hesitant to even do the thing in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then she goes down and notices, she gets in her car and then looks in the mirror and notices that there's blood everywhere. She gets out of her car and starts screaming. Then there's a projectile cam that swoops in, through the garage, from multiple angles, and then she's screaming, and then it goes straight into her mouth. And that's how it ends.
Yeah. For Evil Dead Rise, I would have to say my rating would be a solid 8. Mm-hmm. I think it was really good for a slasher.
For a gory
movie.
Yeah. I would give it a light 7.
What does light mean?
Like a 7.2.
Okay. Yeah. Also, I have a fun fact for you guys about this movie. So, during the whole filming of the movie, there was 6,500 liters of blood, fake blood, used.
It's a lot of blood.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, though. No, there were no, like, minors, I guess, being mutilated in the old ones, right?
They're all adults.
They were all adults. In this one, these kids were being mutilated.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, there's no, like, so the old ones are considered campy or, like, filled with, like, satire.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Very funny, goofy stuff. And this one was not that way at all. It was very serious when it came to the storyline and, you know, how the Evil Dead affects people. Like, there was funny moments, but I don't know if they were supposed to be, like, funny moments meaning like ridiculous moments. And, like, you could talk about what Ash does with his hand in the old ones.
Oh, yeah, in Evil Dead 2, he gets infected. Well, his hand gets infected and tries to fight him. And he's, like, smashing plates on his head. And then his hand's, like, crawling away to grab a cleaver. Mm-hmm. And then he chops it with a knife and then says, "Who's laughing now?" and with a chainsaw and cuts his own hand off. And then he puts a chainsaw on his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah,
those movies
definitely more, like, not as serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old ones don't take themselves seriously at all.
Yeah.
Like, very goofy.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think was your favorite scene from this movie?
Probably when the elevator is getting filled with blood, and then the creature's reaching down to grab them, and then the elevator drops and the blood shoots out. It's very Shining-esque.
Yeah.
I like that part a lot.
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
My favorite, probably, even though it's, like, really, really gross, I think it's because it's my favorite because it shocked me so much, but it's when the mom jumps on the older, or the younger man in the hallway and bites his eyeball out of his skull. Yeah. Like, that, like, my jaw was on the floor. Is there anything you'd want to change about this movie?
Well, considering it's Evil Dead, it didn't have Ash, but played by Bruce Campbell in it.
Yeah.
Like the mom going shopping for her, whatever she does, like arts and crafts. He could have been working there.
She's a tattoo artist.
Well, yeah, he could have been working there and helped her out.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see.
What would you change?
I would have definitely, I mean, okay, in comparison to the other movies, like, there's really no comedic relief in this one at all. It's so deadpan,
bleak,
serious, bleak. There's no hope. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I wish there was more comedic relief, like the scene you were mentioning earlier where he was fighting his own hand in the older movies. Like, I would have liked to see something like that. So this horror movie is like very modernized and not really comedic at all in any sense.
The tone is very different.
Okay, guys, well, that was our review and recap of Evil Dead Rise. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.